We're on a 1942 property here today. From the looks, first impressions, a renovated one. So with that comes the challenges of, was the renovation done properly? On the roof, some things that I'm seeing initially here. So shingles all look fairly new, fairly recently done. Something that caught my eye was this flat roof over here. You can see along this edge that we have a natural low area right here. Now, flat roofs are meant to be watertight, but you do want them to shed water still. So lower areas in there can become a problem, especially in this concentrated area right here. We do have granule loss in this location. So I will be recommending for further evaluation by a roofer. Another thing that's interesting about this area appears to be either an addition or covered patio at one point. Something along those lines where this roof wasn't originally here. Along this area right here, I'm not going to walk on it because these granules are very fragile, but there are literal pockets of air, little air bubbles that are showing up on the roof area here. So heat's getting trapped in between the roof material and the decking below it. So definitely something that needs to get looked at. At this point, I have already done a first pass through the interior, just getting a familiarization with the orientation of the home, where equipment would be located. And one thing I'm tying together here is that our furnace is right below this bonnet vent termination. So bonnet vents were something we used a long time ago. Now, this home was originally built in 1942, so this falls in line with that. But now we will use a type B flue termination, and with that termination helps prevent the backdrafting of carbon monoxide into the attic space. So right here, when your heater is running, it's going to be venting out through these larger openings here, and if the wind catches it just right, it does have a chance of backdrafting that carbon monoxide into the attic space. I like to think about too is how water is going to travel on this roof, but I also want to look in places where you're not normally gonna just immediately draw your eyes to, and one of those places is overhang. So underneath this location here, we do have some missing counter flashing. So while it's not going to get wet every time it rains, but if we had some heavy wind-driven rain, this location under here is not covered at the transition between the shingles and the siding. So on that, I would recommend for counter flashing to be added in, so that way you don't have to worry about water penetration. You can see that there is some deterioration of the wood around this location. Over in this area, a couple of things. So one, we've already spoken about with the furnace on that side, but the water heater is in this area, so it is coming out of one of these two bonnet vents. Also, there's just no type B flues present on this roof structure, so it has to vent somewhere. It's going to be one of these two. Another thing over here, we do have a low slope with shingles present. Now, there are measures a roofer can take to make this an acceptable practice, though not very common, but we do measure the pitch in questionable areas here, and we had a 1.1 over 12 inch pitch, and with that, shingles are generally not going to be the type of material you want to use because they will not shed water properly to allow a long lifespan of the shingles. So I would recommend this area be looked at further as well, along with our low slope roof that we had on the front side of the home. Drainage is something very important we take a look at in homes, especially in the Houston area where we do have a lot more rainfall than most places. In this area in particular, we actually have a negative slope towards the house. So the driveway itself, you can see this portion of it has settled and started sloping down this way. Well, this is going to guide water towards the home itself and not allow water to shed properly towards the street. Now, if we're encountering areas where water is consistently moving towards the home and not draining away properly, that can lead to issues with your foundation. So this is something that they do need to keep an eye on, and ideally corrections made so that we're not running into future problems.
Okay, outside with this older property here, one thing that I see is that we have a planter box in place. A lot of people like to install these. The thing is this is a perfect conducive condition for termites. Your foundation is a pier and beam foundation. These things are going to hold water, And you have a siding transition here that is held with just caulking too as well. So there's several penetration points where they can get in. Also, there's a place that's just gonna harbor water, and your house is built out of wood. So you have all the elements in place that will allow a perfect condition for termites to be in your property and not be found. Tyler later is going to crawl in this crawl space if there's access. He's going to bring the camera with him, and hopefully he can inspect this area a little bit more. If I had to guess, there's a very good chance he's going to find rot in this area just from lack of ventilation, an easy spot for water to get into, and you have a planter box right in place. The only fix for this in most cases is to probably remove it. So let's see first if it's causing any issues later in the video. Another item that I'm seeing in this location that is in the result of that flat roof up here. He said that the flat roof was so hot and it was bubbly and the granules easily came off just by touching it. Right here on this low slope roof, there's no ventilation in this section at all. Our roofs are really hot in Texas and there is no attic space. There's no air movement in this location at all. The only thing that's going to happen is just age that roof dramatically and cause some livability issues in this location. Over here where that flat roof is located, you can see the rot in the soffit area. So we know this roof is leaking now, and it's something that we're gonna write up that it needs to be repaired immediately because we're gonna get water penetration on the side of the structure.
A few things that I've noticed over here, so still have the cover off for the panel, but right around where the service wires and branch circuit wires rather are going into the wall, we do have an exposed sharp edge. So we want a gasket around there, something to protect the wires from being damaged. Moving on up to where the service mast is, we have an open area where it passes through the roof structure. Now this can lead to rodent or other types of pest intrusion into the attic area, and once they make it inside and make themselves a nice home, they can cause other further damage. Moving further down, we have our primary condensate drain line for the AC right here, and you can see we have a nice puddle of water growing right here with wood, especially old wood, added with moisture, coupled with a dark space in the crawl space. We have all the conditions that we need for termites and other wood destroying insects to thrive. So it would be a good idea to extend this out just so it gets away from the house if you are not able to tie this into a sink inside the home.
One of my favorite things to do as a home inspector slash termite inspector, I do have a WDI license, is to find termites. Sometimes it makes my week. And so right here we have a staircase where the bottom edge of it is rotted out, and some people could get this confused with WDI damage. Right here we do not have that. This is coming from an excessive water flow. If you did have termites in this location, you would see granules, you would see debris, you would see frass coming from the termites, and then right here we do not have that. All we have is just the bottom edge of the staircase that's rotted out. As a home inspector, all we're going to do is just write it up. As a WDI inspector, we write it up saying that there's wood rot in this location, needs to be replaced or treated.
So here's an example of how small you have to look sometimes. These little pellets right here are drywood frass, and they are starting from these little holes right here. So sometimes we'll knock on the side and we'll have even more frass fall out, but this would be considered an active infestation for us, so some remediation will be needed. Seeing any more frass over here.
I just see that mud, that's all.
Yeah.
One of the other areas that we spot with termites, that was a great spot from Tyler over there, the drywoods. I really haven't seen frass that small before, but that is active drywood frass. But over here, we have wood to ground contact. We have a spot where it's going to be harboring water. We have wood rot, and then we also have mud here. And sometimes this mud can be ants or termites. And as a termite inspector, you have to be pretty careful opening these guys up because they'll dive down real quick if they're subterranean termites. If they're Formosan termites, they'll come out and try to attack you. So what you want is a screwdriver or a key, sometimes a little stick, and you want to try to catch them active, or you can get a picture of them so your clients know that you found termites. So we're going to dig this guy open real quick. Let's see if I can catch anything. And you can see how this mud is pretty compacted. Sometimes that is subterranean termites. Left my screwdriver inside. I don't know, we might have to dig a little bit harder over here. I'm not getting anything. It's pretty dry too. And honestly, I know that sounds kind of crazy. I think I smell the chemical over here, but I don't see like they sprayed or something. Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Onto the back patio, one thing that caught my eye was right here in the middle, you can see a sag in the header there. We also have our framing running across the center here. Would help a lot. It doesn't need to be right in line with this, but an additional support in the center here would really help support this structure. As we move looking up to where the rafters are connecting onto the main structure of the home, we can see them separating and pulling away. So multiple signs that this structure is not being supported properly. Moving on into what used to be the garage has been converted over to a living space. We have a water heater closet right here. Now, just to name a few of the key things in here. One, we don't have separation between the attic space and inside of this closet. We do not want to draw our combustion air from inside of this room. Now, we do have a gas-powered piece of equipment in here. We want this door to be sealed off with weather stripping and not communicating air into here in case, like what we're seeing right here, the flue is separated. So what would be venting the carbon monoxide gas out through the roof level is actually moving into the cabinet. And when we have ventilation here that is communicating air into the room, this carbon monoxide can come into here. So someone sleeping in the room may not know. We know carbon monoxide's the silent killer. So other things that we're seeing, no pan underneath the water heater, no sediment trap on the gas line that catches impurities of the gas before it goes into the system. But another important thing, this is from 2003, so this water heater is 22 years old. You're really looking at a good general lifespan of 10 to 12 years on a water heater, so this one is well past due. And when it comes to water heaters, we want to replace those before they go out on us because the amount of damage that they can cause compared to the cost of replacing them is quite different.
One of the last items we're going to cover outside before we go into the attic space is I noticed that we have a crawl space and there's zero access to it, which is pretty unfortunate for us and for the client. Doesn't mean that they're completely out of pocket when it comes to inspecting this foundation. We get on our hands and knees and we look at every single port around the structure. And today, which is good, we were able to see inside there. Yes, it's just a little basic hardy lathe here and it can be easily being removed, but as home inspectors, we're not allowed to remove items. We can't pull things out of place because we can damage the structure. But I can kind of move it to the side and get my camera in there and be able to inspect in several locations. And on this one, we found some pretty good stuff. We saw some piers that are not touching the floor joists. We have some that are leaning out of place. We have electrical wires touching the ground, and we could see some areas where there's some pooling water under the structure, so it's not properly graded either. So it is good that we were able to still do our job. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you will always find more crawling underneath there. But we found enough that we know that our client needs a foundation specialist to come out here, regrade the structure, fix the electrical wiring, and get all the piers properly secured so you're not walking across air and wavy floors on this structure. Before I go inside with Tyler, I just want to address the foundation, this pier and beam foundation a little bit better. So a pier beam foundation, for it to properly work, even on these older structures, you really want to make sure the grading is done correctly. You don't want water to sit or pool in these areas because all that's going to happen is your piers are going to drop, they're going to lean out of place, you're going to have constant movement inside the structure. So if your home inspector says that there's poor grading in the house, but it's older and it's been like that for a long time, it's still going to fail. It's going to ultimately fail over a period of time. They have all fresh patch and paint, but you go one summer or one heavy rain season and your house is just gonna have cracks throughout the whole structure and you're gonna have a foundation company out here. So this is something that we'll definitely address and we'll stress with the clients on the inside. All right, let's head to the attic.
Going to cover the attic. Let's get our ladder down here now. There is not going to be any space to stand up there, but that's okay. You can still see a lot just standing from the attic ladder. Now that we're in the attic space, limited access here, but right here on the gas line for the heater, used my handy dandy gas leak detector. I'm not going to boot it back up, it takes a bit, but right at this joint right here, I did pick up a gas leak, so are going to need some attention from a plumber. Either replace this flex line here or add some more sealant. Up top, we do have some exposed wires, and where it's passing through the cabinet, it's not protected from damage around the edge, so we need some improvement there. And for our AC coils, you'll notice that we do not see any drain lines right here. The access is actually on the other side where we're going to have our primary and secondary drain line, and we have some standing water in the pan. And it's probably hard for you to see, but where the pan drain line would be, it's actually tying directly into the primary drain line, and it's not separate. So that dripping that we're seeing outside is actually from this pan being full of water. That is our range exhaust. So for our kitchen range hood, that is not venting outside. They just have a duct resting here in the attic. So your grease particles are just going to be discharged here into the attic. Also mentioned some duct work. This should be suspended from the rafters. It's just laying down on the ground here. So even though you can't walk inside, you can still usually see quite a bit just from standing here and surveying the area.
Before I leave Tyler and head out to start editing this video, Tyler's gonna knock out all the small things like the outlets, doors, windows, but I feel like we covered a lot of the major items. One of the most common questions people always ask their home inspector is, would you buy this property? And we're never really going to answer that question. Our job is just to find all that we can possibly wrong within the allotted amount of time that we have, and then it's for you to take those facts and determine if this house meets your needs, or you can afford to fix the items that are in place. So with that being said, please check out our other videos, and please hit the like and subscribe button, and catch us on the next one. Thanks guys, bye.